Now, time for some questions. Yes? The question is there, is there any medical evidence that sexual orientation, I would say, not just activity, is something that is inherited? I think that's an open question. That I think there's all kinds of evidence and testimony of people who have been aware of the fact that they have a homosexual orientation far before puberty. I've talked to many people who said, I knew when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and as I got into adolescence, of course, it became more clear to me that I don't have these same kind of feelings that a lot of my pals have. And there certainly seems to be some kind of a genetic component, but there may be environmental components too. I don't know about that. But I am very convinced that it's not chosen, and as I just said, that it is established quite early in a person's life, and I do not think it is very susceptible to change. It would be very difficult, I think, to change me into a homosexual. I think it's equally difficult to change homosexual people into heterosexual people. But of course, there are diversity on that spectrum. There are bisexual people who have sexual attraction in both ways. I've counseled one guy once, told me he was all sexual. Said if a green pickup truck goes by, I get turned on. That seemed a little much to me, but that's what he told me. Other comments or questions? Yes?
I would just make the comment that I think the ELCA has painted themselves into a corner in terms of the clergy. Is there any likelihood that somebody's going to amend that rules?
Well, there are all kinds of people working on that. And that reminds me, thank you. Shirley is your name. What's your first name again? Jim. I know who you are, but I don't keep that. This is the draft statement on homosexuality has just come out from the ELCA, and I think it's a strange statement to me because it is about 50 pages long and only a couple of pages dealing with homosexuality at all, and it really doesn't say much of anything. The most positive thing I say about it, it does not have some of those old condemnations are not there. But there are not many affirmations either. But anyway, you could take this, and there's a response form here. You could use this in connection with this many members, one body, or your Hospitality Plus discussion group. Take a look at that and see what... I was really surprised by the fact that it's so bland. Doesn't say much, but there are all kinds of people working on that. And it'll come up again in the 2009 Assembly of the Church, and there certainly are people hoping for some changes. There have been some changes. There have been, in the last assembly said that they didn't change the rules, but they said that one should be pastoral and compassionate and not vindictive and, you know, not sort of, I don't know, benign neglect or something. I don't know what word, they don't use that word, but that they shouldn't be severe with people who are doing kind of stuff. And people have not been severe with me or other people who've been involved in these ordinations. I'm grateful for that. Other comments? Questions?
Can you just say that we welcome GLBT people, or what have you seen in other congregations?
Well, there are lots of congregations who are what are called now reconciling in Christ congregations. And what they would do is not, you don't put up a neon sign outside the church, but maybe have a line in the bulletin that all people are welcome in this church of all races, and you know, gay and lesbian people are welcome, or on the basis of difference of orientation and so on. I think it's nice to have a little line there about that. It doesn't have to be a, you know, a big, it's a big thing, certainly a big thing for gay and lesbian people. I mean, I don't know how many times I've talked with people who really have felt rejected by the church. And if there should be any place, you know, Romans 15:7, welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you for the glory of God. We should all be welcoming people. We're all sinners. Homosexual people are sinners, not because they're homosexual, because they're human beings fallen in sin. And I think there are ways that one could do that. Now, I know it has created a controversy in some churches, but I think if it's approached in in a way that we're not trying to exclude anybody. And that's what I like about this thing in this little book by Craig Nissen. I think we could go beyond that. I think that, as I said, I think the traditional interpretation is often a misunderstanding and misuse of the Bible, but I'm not suggesting let's not kick anybody out of the church. Let's welcome people in. Other comments, questions? Yes?
I've come through the same generational
Yes.
background as yourself. And to me, and listening to my friends and others, it seems to me that what you call sexual activity is what turns many people off, basically. And they can't get by that, even though heterosexuals engage in everything.
Yes.
But that it seems to be the block. Is, what is their imagination runs wild.
I think that's a very perceptive comment. I think it is true that in many of these discussions that the fantasies, if I put it that way, or imaginings of what goes on in these relationships is things that turn people off. They can't imagine people doing certain things. Well, they should, as you have just pointed out, heterosexual people do a lot of strange things too. And I think that is something to be kept in mind. And I think we should focus on the relationship between people, and there are a lot of those relationships that are most offensive to people that I understand. I'm no expert on this, but I've read stuff about it that many gay and lesbian people never practice anyway. They're practiced by minorities of these communities. But in any case, it's not a question of, I think that's what that Romans 13 text, love does no wrong to a neighbor. Love is that which is life-giving and fulfilling.
Et cetera, without counseling heterosexual marriages to stay together and recognizing problems, do you see any improvement in that aspect of pastoral leadership and synod leadership as we try and bring the gay and lesbian relationships into it? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. No, I think there are things that are very helpful to people. Carol and I wrote a book years ago called Be Good to Each Other. It's still in print over there, that we hope can be helpful to people getting married. There are programs like Prepare and others for pre-marriage counseling and therapy. There's counseling for people. Being married is not an easy thing. Carol and I have been married now for 53 years. Is it 54 maybe now coming up? Anyway, we met on the debate team at St. Olaf, been at it ever since. And we say in the beginning of the book, quoting an old saying, that we've never thought of separation or divorce, but we have thought of murder on a few occasions. But I think we have all the support that's given to marriage. Gay and lesbian people haven't had that support. It's amazing when you meet people who've been together for many years in committed relationships. They have not had that. So I think we need to give support to people who are in relationships of commitment and love, and do everything we can to be helpful to them, because these are not easy things to do. There are times in life we don't get along with ourselves. We shouldn't be surprised we don't get along perfectly with somebody else.